Welcome to Arctic's 8-Bit Bytes. Today I want to share a real-world example of QSYS LUA programming. We'll be using a QSYS feature called Named Components, a tool that lets you assign scripting names to blocks within your program. Then, instead of using wires, you can talk to those blocks directly with LUA Scripting. In this scenario, we're working with a conference room equipped with a Q-SYS NV32 video switcher, which is also running in core mode as the room's processor. For video output, we have a large LG display. The NV32 has 3 HDMI inputs, all of which were already in use for local conference room sources. Then, I was asked to add a 4th HDMI input, bringing in a video feed from an auditorium in the same building. Since all NV32 inputs were occupied, we had to route this 4th video feed to HDMI input number 2 on the TV. Meanwhile, HDMI input number 1 at the TV was still being fed by the main output of the NV32. To make the touch panel layout simple and intuitive, I set up 4 video selection buttons. The first 3 buttons select HDMI 1 on the TV and select between inputs on the NV32. The 4th button switches the TV to HDMI input 2, which will be the auditorium video feed. To make this setup work seamlessly, I decided to handle it all with LUA Scripting. The LUA script will interact with 2 key blocks, the NV32 block and the TV's device driver block. As you can see, we are using all 3 HDMI inputs on the NV32. We will also be using HDMI inputs number 1 and number 2 on the TV. It's worth noting that for this video, I don't have the TV online with a Qsys core, so we won't be seeing live feedback from the TV device driver module. The first step is to click on each block, go to its Properties tab, and under Script Access, give each block a meaningful code name or script name. Make sure that the feature Script Access is set to All. This allows any block in the QSYS program to access this block remotely. Next, we need to figure out what elements in these blocks we'd like to control. Under the Tools menu, QSYS Designer has a tool called View Component Controls Info. When you click on a block, this tool will show you all the elements within a block that you are allowed to control. We need to figure out how to select different HDMI inputs on the NV32. We also need to figure out how to select different TV inputs on the display driver. Unfortunately, the View Component Controls Info tool only gets us about halfway there. It really doesn't give you the exact syntax that you'll need within your LUA script. It just gets you close and tells you what you need to control. I do, however, have a little trick that I'd like to show you, and it's with Block Controller. Block Controller can help you figure out exactly how to format your command. You can also use Block Controller to help you figure out just about any other command. I do want to remind you though that with Block Controller, it adds a bunch of extra formatting, so don't get overwhelmed when we use it as a tool. We've given our blocks script access names, so under Named Components, Block Controller can find the blocks that we want to talk to. As you can see, the name Video Switcher is in the list, and so is LG Display. Notice that Block Controller also tells us that the NV32 HDMI input 1 select command is a Boolean value. It will either be true or false. Now click on the LUA tab within Block Controller. At the bottom, you will see the command formatting that we'll need. Let's write this formatting down, let's say maybe in Notepad. We now have the information that we need to write our Lua script. But first, I'd like to talk about a new Lua scripting command. The command is the Component.New command. The Component.New command is what allows us to talk to any other blocks in our program without using wires. The Component.New command technically creates a new object. This new object can reference any block that we've given a scripting name to in our Qsys program. We will use the scripting names that we assign to the NV32 and the LG device driver blocks. These new objects can then be used to change various elements within those blocks. Here's the format for the Component.New command. In our example, we will use this command. And with the word video is going to be our object name. See how we use the script access name that we gave to our NV32 video switcher? We are creating a new object called video. This object called video will now be an object that references the NV32 block in our program. For the object name, you can use any variable name that you'd like. Lua has very few rules when creating variables and objects, unlike other programming languages. Let's move on to our program. We first need to create 4 buttons. I personally like to use state triggers, which can be a 1 or a 0. It's worth experimenting with other button types to see what works best for you. Our next task is to make something happen when the 4 new buttons are pressed. Lua can run a block of code underneath a command called an event handler. An event handler is a block of code that runs when an event happens, like a button press. Notice that the event handler is using the local text controller button name. When a button is pressed, we'd like the button to light up or become a 1. The other buttons should not light up and become a 0. This is where we get to use a fancy element name that we found in our block controller trick. For button number 1, we want NV32 to select HDMI input 1 and have the TV on input number 1 also. This is the end of our first triggered event handler. To close out that block of code, Lua expects the end command. The rest of the blocks will be a simple copy, paste, and change a couple values. We have 3 more blocks to create. We will have 1 event handler for each button, 4 total. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I forgot to change the comment text of the last block. The last block selects HDMI input number 2 on the TV. So let's click Save. The next step is to take the buttons that we made in Text Controller and copy them over to our touch panel. I already have the buttons made on the touch panel. So you can drop the Text Controller buttons at the bottom, drag the created buttons onto the new buttons, and select Transfer Control Style. This is done by holding Control, dragging the button with a mouse click, and releasing the mouse button while still holding Control. Let's run the program and emulate the design. The buttons should light up when clicked, and if you look at the NV32 video block and TV device driver blocks, the inputs will be changing also. At this point, if things aren't working properly, you can go back into Text Controller and see if your program has created any errors or if we've mistyped anything. Thanks for watching Arctic's 8-Bit Bytes. I'm thrilled to be one of your internet AV programming resources. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more AV programming content. Thanks.